Ben here from MTG Dungeon, and today we're going to play Historic Brawl. My commander of choice, Feather the Redeemed. Super oppressive, I love it. I can't wait to show you. Remember to like and subscribe down below if you like what you're seeing here on the channel. Let's go check it out. Alright, well as you can see I have a guest here today. It's Vin, my roommate's cat. Wants everything to do with me right now. But what I want to do is talk about this sweet deck that I built for Historic Brawl. It's Feather the Redeemed. Now, if you're not super familiar with Brawl, the general idea is that it's commander, which means you have something called the commander zone, and a legendary creature or a planeswalker can sit as your general in the commander zone. Your deck must be compiled of cards that share a color identity with your general, and you can only have one copy of any given non-basic land. So, the idea of this deck is you play Feather, the Redeemed, and you start casting a bunch of spells that target a creature you control. Because it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So this card is literally card advantage on a stick. So what you do is you fill your deck with cards that are utility and also do maybe some pump. So in this case, a Defiant Strike, +1/+0, draw a card until end of turn, fight as one, give target creature a non-human creature or a human creature you control indestructible till end of turn. God's Willing, protection from the color of your choice till end of turn, scry 1. So as you can see, a lot of these cards are pretty utility. They pump, they draw. This one scries, so there's card quality in there. First strike, scrying, indestructible cards. Like these two, Selfless Savior and Alseid of Life's Bounty. I mean, they're creatures, but sometimes just having a creature that does an effect of an instant or sorcery can be very valuable. It can divert some resources on their end. The cornerstone of almost any given commander style deck is a mana rock. I don't think you'll find many lists out there that choose not to run mana rocks. Mana rocks are artifacts that tap for color, so it's a ramp of some sort. This is a very efficient one. Tap for one color of your commander's color identity. And these ones fit the deck, I think, the best. Heraldic Banner, give your creatures of the chosen color when it ETBs, choose a color. +1/+0, and then it adds a mana of that color. And Skyclave Relic, it's just an indestructible one that if you draw it later, or if it doesn't make sense to play it on 3, 4, or 5, you can kick it and get 3 mana rocks. So that's inherent value right there. There aren't very many cards that are just spot removal. Usually you rely on combat tricks, but this will take over the game pretty well if you have a Feather the Redeemed out. 4 damage to target creature you don't control, and 2 damage to target creature you control. So you play it on, you target any creature you control as long as Feather is out for the 2 damage, and then deal 4 to something, and then hopefully you're killing it, but you get it back at the end step, so you can keep doing it once every turn. Once every turn, which is kind of insane. There aren't a lot of straight up spot removals cards. Banishing Light is one of them. I have Elspeth Conquers Death, which has a little bit of restriction on it, but it's still very effective. Sometimes you can set it up to where Feather goes to the graveyard and you get it back with a +1/+1 counter. These two cards are some of the over-the-top or top-end cards. Torbrand, almost everything that you're dealing damage with will be red except for Luminarch's Aspirant, which is in here because it's just a great card. And you can make your feather bigger, or make some of these weird smaller creatures bigger as well, making it harder for your opponent to get through. But these cards, they may not seem to theme, but I think they work pretty well considering you get what you cast as long as Feather's in play back. So we got all of these cards: Electrostatic Field, Firebrand Archer, and Thermal Alchemist. They all benefit from you casting instants and sorceries. They deal a point of damage basically when you do. And Feather keeps bringing them back, so that's great. This is kind of in here because as a random catch-all. Sometimes it's free and it's great. Sometimes you just don't need the card. Vin is being very playful today. Oh my god! And this card's probably the MVP of the deck, honestly. Just double the power, and then you get it back. It's just such a huge swing. But you never really cast it for victory, like ever. Ever. Ow, that one hurt. What is your deal? What is your deal, Vin? Calm down. You're fine. Gosh, she's got so much energy. Anyway, the mana base here, I think, is pretty standard in what it wants to do. Just hit your colors. That's it. Just have all your colors available. It's not very utility. This is probably the most utility land in here. Probably the only one. I'm going to take a quick look. I guess you could consider this some sort of utility. You were more white because we have a few double white cards that we want to be casting. Mainly our commander. But Outlaw's Merriment is very good because it's inherent card advantage. And sometimes what will end up happening is you'll play Feather on turn 3. Risk reward there. Sometimes it doesn't pan out, but you can follow it up with an Outlaw's Merriment on the next turn, because unless you played a Mana Rock on turn 2 or the Arcane Signet, you can't cast Feather on the following turn. So you play Outlaw's Merriment to follow, and then you can play Feather, and they have to choose to deal with the enchantment or the Feather, and both of them are pretty annoying. Alright, so I think I've rambled on enough about this deck. I really like it. It's actually quite oppressive. And let's look at some games to show you what I mean. Alright, so full disclosure here. I started recording this video and we had laundry going on in the background. So I'm commenting over this video. Anyway, so we're starting game 1 off with a pretty solid hand. We end up going with Fabled Passage because we want to make sure we hit our get double white. We do have the option with that cassette land, the Needle Verge pathway. But when it comes to those cassette lands, the way that I personally play them is I don't want to play them until I feel like I have to. Basically, until it's my last land. So right now we're making a play Luminarch Aspirant just because it's on curve. And if you follow up with the main phase Feather, the Redeemed, you can just start making that thing bigger. So they follow up with what is it, Raging Raptors. So that one, when you deal when it takes damage, they Rampant Growth, search the library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield, tap, shuffle the library. Right now I have a choice. I could just I have 4 lands, and I end up going with the alternate route that I'm about to describe. I play a 2-drop, leaving God's Willing up at every given point of the game. That way I protect Lumen Aspirant. Also, if they decide to do something on their turn in my board, I can let it happen and follow up with a Feather the Redeem the next turn and have it posted. So they decided to try to go for removal on it, and I decided it's just worth it to counter this card. As you can see, there's a little bit of synergy there. I was able to cast a card, deal an extra point of damage there with the 0/4 creature I have in play. Doing it this way as well, I can next turn choose to just make my Luminarch Aspirant bigger if I wanted to, and decide to attack. Which we'll see what I do. I think that's what I do, but I can't quite remember. So, like I talked about earlier, having something to do. I did end up top decking something to do with the Reckless Rage, but having a mana posted, at least to pretend I have something to do after playing Feather, it's basically like holding up a counter spell. Which is what how you really should be playing that card if it is possible. I did end up deciding that Luminarch Aspirant was worth having around. Oh, excuse me. Alright, so I decided to make Luminarch Aspirant too big for Raging Raptors to try to squeeze in that damage where I can. Right now, I'm just kind of hoping that I get to keep Feather the Redeemed around to untap. If not, worst case scenario, I get to at least kill a Raging Raptors and get my Reckless Rage back before I have to recast Feather to get that value. Right, I have Adamant Will and... Oh, okay, so charging Tuscadon. This is why I waited because I could only do one Reckless Rage with 1 mana posted. I wanted to see if they would invest anything else onto the board that's worth Reckless Raging, and they did, so that play paid off really well. And I chose that creature. It doesn't really matter what creature I target because Feather lets me, or triggers off of any creature that I actually have. I top deck a Mountain. That's a pretty good top deck because now I can cast 2 spells I want. I could Onward and Raking Claw. Raking Claw gives my creature double strike, which is kind of insane. So I could this turn theoretically deal up to 12 damage. I think both of them are instants, so I can do that whenever I want. Onward being an instant is such a good card. Things are not looking very good for them right now. I'm not they really just need some sort of board wipe. And even then, it would be hard because I have Adamant Will, and I will never not have 2 mana posted at this point because Adamant Will provides +2/+2 and indestructible. So they really need like a bounce effect, which the Naya colors don't provide very much of, if any. Or like an enchantment removal, something that gets rid of a permanent without having to destroy it. So they untap. Let's see what they do. This game was, I think, the game that showed me that you can, in Commander, have companions and a commander. There's a companion zone and a commander zone. So it's kind of cool to see that. So they just go with slamming their companion, which, okay, they know I have Reckless Rage, so everything, okay, so they decide that's enough. See, that's why Reckless Rage in this deck is absolutely insane. Because they have to start investing things that are just 5 toughness or greater. And that can be hard to do. Man, this deck is just seriously oppressive. Alright, so Birdman 7430. They're playing that Golgari Legend Hydra. So this hand's honestly kind of iffy. I don't have protection. I just have a lot of aggression. And I don't know if this Heliod's Intervention is going to be enough to do anything, or if I'm even going to play it. With this deck, you always want to try to get your double white on first. So having 1/1 leaves me options. Generally, doing things in this fashion, playing lands out like this, 1/1 if you're a 2-color deck, it leaves you open to more options. Maybe you top deck a double red spell. Maybe you need to play double white. All right, so at this point, it looks like I decided to slam Feather. I want to try to end the game as quickly as possible, so I decided to put the counter on Luminarch Aspirant. At this point, I remember thinking that Feather would be good enough to have up to block, which I forgot that Storm Coil Serpent does have protection from multicolor, so they do have a free 2 damage if they want it. But on the flip side of that coin, that's an infinite blocker. So I guess they decide infinite blocker is better, but it doesn't really matter because I have the Reckless Rage. So I decide Firebrand Archer, pretty good draw because I plan on starting to cast my instants and sorceries every turn. So I go with the removal spell. So that becomes 4 damage to target creature you control, or your opponent controls 2 to 1 of yours. You get it back at the end of your end step, and it deals 1 point of damage, which is kind of insane. And also, the way this board is set up, that Fida's one is perfect. I have 2, I believe that's a human. Firebrand Archer is a human. I know Luminarch Aspirant, well, actually, I'm pretty sure it's a human too. I'm not 100%. I need to double check that. But Feather is not a human, so I have 2 legal targets for Fida's one. So that's a really good fit for my board presence. This interaction is something I didn't look into when I made that play. I didn't actually pay attention to what Grokma does. Alright, so they go with Pride Malkin. It looks like they missed their land drop. They're going to try to put a +1/+1 counter on their creature, but obviously, if I let that happen, Reckless Rage can't kill it, so we could do it at the absolute last moment that we can, which is as an instant, and I draw a protection spell. So the thing about this protection spell is it doesn't soak up white mana after it's already in play, because its ability only requires a generic mana, not a colorless. That's different than generic. So I decide to just leave my mana up. That way I have Fight as 1 up, I have my Bounty up, I have Reckless Rage up. And that's a perfect Reckless Rage target. That card can really get out of hand. That's an engine card, Ayara. That's just an engine card. You can do a whole bunch of ETB, enter the battlefield effects, and we don't want that. So we decide that is what we're going to do this turn. We are going to get rid of this. At this point, I feel like I'm just so far ahead. I don't know what they could do. And I decide to get an extra point of damage in with Fight as 1. Normally, I would like to reserve information if I could, but I do need to end the game at some point too. I didn't do the math to see if it mattered enough. Okay, Torbrand. So I could slam Torbrand, and my Fire, Arch, Brand, and Feather would add +2 damage. So I just decided to go in for the attack and just post up my instants and sorceries. Play that during one of my main phases so I can get value, have it back to kill another thing. That card so far with this setup has been a 3-for-1, which is ridiculous. 3-for-1 plus extra damage because of the Firebrand Archer. This is seriously silly. Alright, I think they need Languish right here, right now. And even then, I could Fight as 1 to give my Feather +1/+1. Languish is one of those removal spells that gets around indestructible because it does minus, not damage. Alright, so I get rid of their... Alright, they get rid of their general after they cast it again, and they decide it's enough, which is fair. I'm so far ahead, it's kind of silly. So this is what I'm talking about with oppressive. Reckless Rage and Feather is just a stupid combination. I'm not sure if there are any other cards like Reckless Rage, but if there are, I'd probably be running them. Alright, so we have... Oh, that's the equipment one. This hand's fine. We get a Scry to try to find our third land. We can provide Indestructible, Storm Strike for Scry, Defiant Strike for draw if it comes to it. And we're hoping to hit 3-on-3. That's why we put this card on the bottom, so we can play Heraldic Banner. Heraldic Banner is the one where you enter the battlefield, you select a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+0 till end of turn. Or not until end of turn, as long as it's out, sorry. And then it taps for the color that you chose when it entered the battlefield. So that's kind of a nice card to have lying around, Outlaw's Merriment. But on the downside, we did not top deck a land, so this is not looking very good anymore. Fireblade Charger is a really good card for, I think, equipment style decks. We top decked a land. Wow. Okay. So we have a choice. We could get Feather or Heraldic Banner. That's why I paused there. I was deciding whether or not it would be worth it, and I decided to play the land or the artifact, because I'm not sure if I'm going to top deck another land to play Outlaw's Merriment. And since I don't have a protection spell in my hand at the moment for Feather, playing Outlaw's Merriment is looking a bit more attractive than slamming Feather with nothing to protect it. I could do card filtering stuff, but I want to make sure that Feather sticks around. So we top deck a land, but it's a tap land. It's one of those specific lands for Arena. So I decide that slamming, because like I said before, I didn't have protection other than Selfless Savior, and I decided to try to get the card advantage engine online. And because I didn't proactively get my Feather the Redeemed out, they're getting their engine online before I get mine online. So that may have been a mistake to try to invest in Outlaw's Merriment. So that was a really interesting draw. Because on the following turn after playing Feather, now I can play 10th District, target it, get it large and stupid, and then also get the cards back with Feather. Because 10th says whenever you target a creature with a spell or ability you control, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and you get to scry one. So it's like casting a free spell when you target it. It's kind of insane. Alright, so they go in with everything. We decide to block for trades. And we block the 4/4 in front of the 5/5 because we have a lot of options. I think I'm going to go for, yeah, the Storm Strike because it gives it +1/+0 first strike. So that will make it so I get the card back, I get to scry, and it's a pseudo removal. And they play Embercleave, which is a very good play. So it makes me need to use a lot more resources. It makes it +1/+1 bigger, so in order for my Feather to actually survive this combat, I need to make it indestructible. And in order to make them use their resources, I need to give it more power, which I happen to have that resource. I kept the bounty on top because I want a pro color source. Pro color is almost better, I think, than indestructible in a lot of cases. So they use the ability, they unattach equipment. If you do tap that creature, it gains indestructible. So we're just going to bounce off of each other. I think what ends up happening is I do take some trample damage. Yeah, I do take trample damage. I think it's 6. Yep, 6 trample. Because with trample, you only have to assign lethal damage before you trample the rest over. So we get those cards back. We get to untap. We don't draw a removal spell for Akiri. So we go with a pro color. We got the lifelink token, so that's really good. So we start building our board state and then leaving mana up at this point so we can cast our spells. All right, so I think the play here is to try to get. We do need to try to end the game too. We do want to win. So I'm deciding how I want to do this. I decide to leave the lifelinker back as a blocker, and I get aggressive with Feather the Redeemed. And we're gonna try to get. We're gonna target that to make it bigger, the 10th District Legionnaire, and try to find something to draw that's better, or that interacts with what my opponent's doing, or to try to end the game. So we get 2 scries if we cast Storm Strike on it right now. I could cast it, or I could leave mana to draw a card when I get the other one back, and then have another mana to have my Life's Bounty creature up for pro color, which is something that I mentioned is very valuable from before. I already played my land for the turn, so I can't do that. And we pass it up. We get our card back, and let's see what our opponent does. Oh, yeah, right. So that gives it flying, and that has double strike, so it's a 6/6 double strike flying, and I attacked with my flyer, so I'm just dead, because I can't block the flyer. My creatures can't jump. Ah, that was such a good play. That was a bad play on my part for not playing around an equipment that gives it flying, but obviously I did not consider that at all. So I decided to cycle just to see what my next card is. It's a Plains. Okay, whatever. Good game. Good game. I think that, honestly, that was my game to lose because I didn't consider all the factors. If I didn't attack with Feather, they might have done something else. But, you know, that's a bunch of ifs. I didn't play around flying. I didn't play around the mall, and I got punished for it. But I think I could have potentially squeaked that game out. Because they weren't gaining life. And Feather can do some serious work. Okay, we got 4 lands. We have our Aurelia, which is a good follow-up to a turn 3 Feather. And we have a lot of power. We have Storm Strike and Onward. So Storm Strike for card quality. Aurelia gives target creature +2/+0 and trample. Or at least Feather. And then Onward doubles the power. So we can really hit them hard starting turn 4. And then we also have double white. We have double red. There's enough here to warrant keeping it. There's not protection. Okay, well, now there's protection. We got fight as 1. And I'm debating on whether or not that profit's worth it. And I decide it would be nice to have something to do on turn 2. So I keep it on top. And it's just free scries at that point. Well, so much for that play, right? Robber the Rich comes in and takes it from me. All right, when we top deck Heraldic Banner, that would have been that's great. So my lands in my hand right now, I want double white so I can play Feather. If I played Mountain, then I wouldn't have double white on turn 3 to play Feather. Even though I have Heraldic Banner to play, we'll see. We'll see what I choose to do. So they exile Thriving Bluff, just another land. Let's see if they cast the Burning Prophet. I mean, is it worth it? It's a free card for them, right? I'd probably play it if I were them. They're just choosing not to. So they must have an instant or sorcery, an instant spell that they really want to be posting. Maybe it's like a burn spell. So we go fetch our white, and we top deck another mountain. Alright, so I go for Banner at this point, because I do have a protection spell for my fight as one. Because I drew fight as one. So that changes my line slightly from going all in to playing a bit safe. Generally, I like to go all in if I just don't have it. I don't like to bluff that I have it, generally. So if you ever play me, you got some advice to how to beat me. Read me. Oh no, I want that card. The 10th District Legionnaire, that's a really good card. Okay, so they play Radha. Did they play another land? Nope, okay. Alright, so Signet was interesting. We play land for turn, play Signet, and that allows us to ramp and then also play my General. And also still keep fight as one. So it's like I get a free permanent. That's a free play. Alright, so we jam out Feather. We have fight as one up. We pass it their way. Oh. I touched the mouse. Alright. Raha looks pretty good. So they attack with everything, and I think I just decide it's worth it. Ooh, Embercleave. Or worth it to try to go for the removal with fight as one. I could have just... If they didn't Embercleave, I could have used the Storm Strike to kill it, but they Embercleaved preemptively almost. So we have to use fight as one to actually remove the creature. Which is still a huge swing of tempo in my favor. Alright, so Light of Hope. I wish that destroyed an artifact, but it destroys an enchantment. Okay, so we play Aurelia, and we decide to really put a clock on him. We have fight as one up. We could Storm Strike too. I think I just didn't realize it. That would have been pretty free to play Storm Strike, get an extra point of damage in. Oh, well, maybe I thought about it that way. I wanted to have fight as one and then just do a Light of Hope on their turn. That way I get an additional +1/+1 counter. I was thinking bigger brain than my commenting. Alright, and they decide that it's enough. They're done. No thank you. No more Feather. Feather's stupid in Brawl. So this hand's pretty ideal. You've got two cards that provide Indestructible, which is great, and you have Aurelia to follow up Feather Redeemed to really start putting on pressure. So this looks like a turn 1 Selfless Savior, turn 2 Fabled Passage, just keep that white mana posted. Turn 3 Feather. We could slam Feather because we played Selfless Savior when it gets to turn 3. And that's why these 1/1s that provide protection are really good. It allows us to tap out on turn 3. Ooh, cool. Something to do on turn 2. But I can't guarantee that we will draw an untapped white source. So we go for Fabled Passage instead. But that was a really cool draw. I do like having these effects in play. Sometimes 1 or 2 points of damage makes all the difference. So their general is pretty interesting. What their general does is it makes it so you can pay 1 of each color instead of paying its mana cost to play whatever's in your hand. So that's a way to, I guess, cheat mana, depending on how you build your deck, right? So we decide instead of slamming Feather, which I think in retrospect would have been better, since I had Selfless Savior in play, I decided to play so I always have Sheltering Light up. But the problem here is now I don't have 3 white. I need 3 white to post up Sheltering Light. So I think that was a mistake on my end, because I don't have a 1 mana red spell to play. Oh well, let's see what they do. Looks like they have all the colors that they need. Now they do. Now they do. They were missing one of them. They're missing white. Okay. So they play their commander and pass the turn. And, ooh, that's really good. So I have a lot of choices here. Sometimes you can really be paralyzed with choice overload. But I need to decide what to do. I decide to go for combat, and if they want to block, they can. I can give it Indestructible. They see that with Selfless Savior, and I could do it with Sheltering Light. Are they choosing to block? I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. As you can see, I have a little bit of choice paralysis here. So I decide to play the Sheltering Light. I get an extra point of damage in that way, and I get some card quality. It may be a land, but I want something else. If I top deck land next turn, fine, whatever. I'm trying to... Oh, that's a sorcery. That's a sorcery, me. You can only play that as a sorcery. Come on. Come on. But it's indestructible, so I don't need to pump it or do anything else to it at the moment. It's a removal spell, and it deals a point of damage. So, woo! Go me! Alright, so they put it in the commander zone, and we get our cards back. We have our Sheltering Light again, in case they decide to try to destroy Feather. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? What you got? So they could sacrifice that Signet, probably? Yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. Kyora's Best Sea. They create a blue 8/8 Kraken token. Okay. Honestly, the Kraken token's not what I'm worried about. It's the other 2 effects. Tap all creatures your opponents control. They don't untap during the next end step. So at this point, I'm looking for answers. So that's why I decided to Shelter. Though I didn't put a stop on my opponent's second post-combat main phase. So, and I played an end step. And since the beginning of the end step pass, I don't get it back until my next end step. Alright, so I do end up drawing another land. It's another tap land. I choose red because it already taps for white. I can't interact with what my opponent is doing, so I think the best play at this point is just to invest in my board. It's a bit awkward, because if I just invest in the board, it taps down anyway. And then if I invest that Aurelia, they could take the Aurelia instead of Feather. I don't think they would, but they could. So I end up going with 10th District because it scries as well. And I target it because it scries when I target it. So that's why I end up targeting it. So it's more mana. I don't need more mana. I already played my land for the turn, so Needle Verge Pathway can't be played. That would have been nice because I didn't have an additional white source. They know about Go for Blood. There's a chance that I may end up cycling Go for Blood. I end up putting that stop on the post-combat main phase so I don't have that happen again where Sheltering Light comes back. Or I played on their end step and I don't get it back until my next end step. Okay, so their ability triggers Saga level 2. All my creatures are tapped, or non-land permanents are tapped, and they don't untap during my next untap step. Alright, so now they have an opening to play Joda. And they get in for 8, which is fine. And I end up cycling, because I'm really worried about them taking my feather. But I think, in retrospect, that's not what I should have done. I think I need... by doing that, it's showing that I'm not valuing that Joda enough. I'm not realizing exactly paying... or what the value is behind what Joda can do at this point. So I end up just trying to find something to deal with that enchantment. And I end up finding an Elspeth Conqueror's Death. And I do that all on my main, or before I draw. That way I draw it. Because I really can't afford to let them have my feather. I just can't. So that's what I prioritize here. Alright, so they get to untap, and they get to untap with Joda, and they play Omniscience. Okay, so now they get everything for free. So let's see what they're holding. This is really, really scary. Alright, so that's probably just game right there. Drawing 7 cards for free is pretty awesome, I hear. Let's see what they follow up with. Ulamog, okay. Do I decide it's enough at this point? Apparently not. So I let Ulamog come into play because they left my feather alone. I think is why I decided this. Okay. So I'm still thinking if I draw a protection spell, I can get in for lethal. Alright. Ugin's probably enough. Let's see what they do with Ugin. If they minus correctly, then that's just game. On the spot. What are you going to do? Alright, so they minus 3. Now, one thing I didn't consider is... that would have gotten rid of their Kraken, but I don't think I could have attacked next turn, so... that's it. Well, there you have it. Feather the Redeemed in Historic Brawl. Pretty cool, right? I thought so. Anyway, thank y'all so much for stopping by. If you like this kind of content, want to see more like it, please leave comments in the section below. And remember to like and subscribe. I'm looking at you guys. And remember, as always, happy magicking.